right, I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, June 5th, 2024 CAC meeting for the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency. If we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And can we, I would like to call staff, can we please get a roll call?
At this time, I'm only asking those CAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Ryan Rossi,
Here.
Lily Charlotte Landstrom, Aquanette Tyson Thomas,
Here.
Kate Layden,
Here.
James Garvin,
Here.
Paula Ryan is excused, Jim Knight,
Here.
Sammy Brown, Vijay Mishra, Francisco Gill, Myron Uman,
Here.
Ryan Rosen,
Here.
Greg Fagan,
Here.
James McCormick,
Here.
Albert Richwagon,
Here.
Win Dang. Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Staff, are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So move.
I have a motion by Wynn, second.
Second.
Let's give it to Ryan. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, they pass. Instructions on how to provide public comment are included in the agenda. Staff, have any general comments been received?
No, Mr. Chair.
As a reminder for action items on the agenda, there are conflict of interest forms available if needed. At this time, I want to invite any CAC member comments on items not already on the agenda. Any? All right, moving right along. I would like to invite Andrew to provide the CAC liaison update. Andrew?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So it's a handout in front of you is the liaison report, and we also have it up on the screen if you want to follow along. I'll just go through a few of them. First one's the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. We've had plenty of municipalities in the county already receive this federal grant for creating a safety action plan. But Boca was just awarded $4 million for planning this demonstration grant through that. So congrats to them. And that's a huge award to move towards safety within Boca Raton. So that's one of those federal grants, and our total is up there when it comes to this award. Next is NACTO, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials. They had their most recent conference in Miami. So thank you for those who participated on that. And also congratulations to Boca Raton for becoming a NACTO member. So they're a NACTO member of city now. The Let's Get on the Bus Challenge for Palm Tran is still ongoing, and it's going to go on till June 15th. There's chances of winning prizes. If you go into the Paradise Pass app by Palm Tran and you have the promo code challenge, so when you add funds to your account and you add the code challenge, you'll receive $5 to ride transit for free. And so each trip is $250, so that can get you for the day riding Palm Tran for free. There's a bunch of transit champions on the website. So if you wanted to sign up for that challenge and select one of those transit champions to be a part of, you can do that. Next is National Dump the Pump Day. That's going to be on June 20th. There's also another code for that one for Palm Tran for Transit 2024. And that's going to be from June 16th to 2022. And again, you can get that through the Paradise Pass. Other ones, we mentioned in the past, bicycle-friendly designations for communities and universities is coming up, that deadline. And then also the long-range transportation plan, we're going to be going to the public with some workshops. At the back of the room here, there are some preliminary maps of all the submittals that we've had, and they're categorized into ones that we believe We're looking for candidates to put into our long-range plan, but it shows all local desires back there. And we're actually going to have this series of maps in more detail at different locations throughout the county. And so we'll be sending out in our newsletter and also a follow-up on where those locations are out. But they're going to be spread throughout the county, and they're going to be occurring in 2 weeks' time. The rest of them you can read at your own leisure. So there's a few other items on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Greatly appreciate it. Are there any comments from the committee? Seeing none. I just want to make sure, stress to everybody the importance of participating in the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. I think a lot of people we work with in the various neighborhoods and communities don't necessarily realize how far out they're planning. So spread the word to get people as engaged in those as you can. So, all right. That being said, I'd like to invite Andrew Uller, Deputy Director of Programs, to present a amendment number 4 to the Transportation Improvement Program. Andrew.
Okay, so there's 2 actions for you today. They both involve our formal document of the Transportation Improvement Program. The first one is our currently active Transportation Improvement Program. This is going to carry us all the way to the start of the next fiscal year, July 1st. So this is fiscal year 24 through 28. And this is amendment number 4. So this is going to be our last amendment to this document. So the Transportation Improvement Program is our 5-year funding of federal and state funds towards transportation products in Palm Beach County. This one is adding a specific phase to a product, the request of FDOT, and that's what triggers an amendment. So if you add a new phase, regardless of how much it costs, it requires an amendment. So it requires public review and then final adoption by our governing board. There's only one product that's on this amendment request, and that is Congress Avenue at 10th Avenue North. So this is an intersection safety project. It's adding a right-of-way phase, so there's going to be some land acquisition. This project is to install additional light poles, upgrade existing lighting, replace the existing span wire to a mast arm. It's also going to add a flashing yellow arrow, so that's another type of safety treatment at the intersection for the signal. It's also extending a northbound left turn lane and removing one of the turn lanes with that going southbound. So construction for this one is in fiscal year 2028. What we're doing here for this amendment is really just adding right-of-way funds. It's going to be phased over a few years, but the one that's triggering the amendment is $361,000 in fiscal year 2025. And where that right-of-way, just to give you a little bit of a description for you. 1 second. Where that right-of-way is occurring is mostly to fit sidewalks and signal infrastructure in the southwest, northwest, and northeast quadrants of the intersection. And then they also need right-of-way acquiring a permanent easement for sidewalk and transit shelter to accommodate a bus shelter for Palm Trend. And that's going to occur just south of 10th Ave North on Congress. The funding for this one is actually going to be safety funds that the state is seeking to get reimbursement from the federal government on. So this is a safety-focused intersection improvement using safety funds. And that's all I have for you. Pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Andrew. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Do any of the committee members have any comments?
Move approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Oh,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Thank you very much. All right. And Andrew, don't go far. We have another motion to recommend adoption of fiscal year 25-29 Transportation Improvement Program. So Andrew, please give us a presentation.
Okay, so the second action item is the upcoming TIP, right? So the next 5 years. So that's going to start with fiscal year 2025. Again, it aligns with the work program of the state. So that's July 1st. We had a more in-depth presentation where I went through all the products last meeting. So I'm going to keep it pretty high level here. I know we had a request to integrate a little bit more about selecting projects. Unfortunately, I couldn't get everything in there in time to do that, but I'll do a little bit in this presentation, and the next meeting when we talk about our list of priority projects, I'll put a little bit more in there as well. So what is Transportation Improvement Program? Again, it's our next 5 fiscal years, federal and state funding towards transportation products in our county. Our role as the TPA in the urbanized area here is to approve the federal and state funds in this document. We directly prioritize a little bit of those funds as well, and you'll see that in a second. So the TIP development process, how do we get to this point where we have a document that has all these phases moving forward for projects? So it really starts with product development. We talk a lot about our long-range transportation plan. All of the products or the programs originate in that plan. They're consistent with the state's plans as well. And so in that process, we might be bringing products forward from our long-range plan into our transportation improvement program. In that, we're assessing if they're feasible to be constructed. We also rank products in some of our other competitive programs annually. Those get vetted and then brought in. And so with those products, they make it into our list of priority projects. And so our list of priority products is the TPA's main programs to move products in the next 5 years that get into the TIP. Once that list is approved by the governing board, it's then sent back to DOT, and DOT statewide is updating their revenue forecasts. And then they're also updating their cost estimates for the current work program, ensuring everything that they can construct in the next 4 years is correct. And then usually they add new products to the new 5th year. And so they'll take that priority list, they'll look at their priorities for the system, integrate that all into the work program. That's what we build the TIP off of. So it's consistent with the work program statewide. And every other metropolitan planning organization in the state is doing this. And so what you're seeing today is that second reading of the TIP. And so here's a few new slides, but this is one taken from AFDOT. How do products get selected? So again, it's existing products are updated for accurate funding. So they're updating the cost estimates of the current products that are in the plan. And then they're bringing in our priority list. So we work with the district office, District 4, AFDOT, to integrate and see how they're incorporating our new priorities and existing priorities in the work program. And then, as I mentioned, they typically come in to the new 5th year. So remaining products typically come in the new 5th year. There are a few programs that have some funding availability earlier on, but the larger ones are going to be phases in the outer years. And so when we're prioritizing projects, what you'll see in this transportation improvement program, what's the culmination of all this, we have the ones that are from the list of priority products. That's our TPA priorities of our major products out of the cost feasible plan. And we've historically had local initiatives program and transportation alternatives. Those are both of our competitive programs that we have for annual applicants. And then there's that set of priorities. Then the state has their set. They have a lot of statutory requirements for their budget. So off the top, there's preservation, right? So we're thinking about bridge, resurfacings, and then there's also safety. And then with the other additional things that they can do outside of that, there's system capacity. So that's going to be like the street intermodal system with highway expansion. There's also the turnpike in that, and they have other enhancements. At the same time that's happening, they're working closely, not just with the MPOs, but they're also working closely with the intermodal partners. So same conversations are occurring with the airport, the seaport, and the rail. And so those are integrated into the TIP as well. And then there's other discretionary pots that are coming down. Sometimes this occurs through locals submitting to a federal grant or a state grant, and they were awarded. That's getting integrated into the work program and then to the TIP as well. And then also another way of discretionary programs sometimes is legislative appropriations. So, earmarks at either the state or federal level that go towards projects that are required to be incorporated. And so all that gets culminated in the end into a work program, and then we show it in our TIP in different product sections. So we have our TPA priority products, and then you'll see FDOT priorities on the street intermodal system, and other FDOT and local product section, and then we have our airports, railroads, and seaports. And then the other sections are their operations and maintenance. So in totality of this next 5 years, what are you looking at today? What are you approving? So it's the recommendation for approval of basically the federal, state, and turnpike funds that are in Palm Beach County over the next 5 years. That equates to $3.63 billion. A very large chunk of that over the next 5 years, and we talked about this last meeting, major investment using turnpike funds, so toll funds from turnpike to build out the turnpike capacity. So major widenings along the turnpike. And then we also have, with federal and state funds, a lot of I-95 capacity projects. After that, the next sections in our transportation improvement program are those TPA priorities. We have our major projects, our local initiatives program, and our transportation alternatives program. That equates to $367 million investment over the next 5 years. So that's that TPA priority list. And then as you make your way through the document, we do have other FDOT products that are off the main capacity system that are being integrated, such as those safety products. We also include local products for reference. So all those 5-year road program products that the county has, where they're doing a lot of widenings on county roadways or other improvements on county roadways, we incorporate those for reference. They aren't directly an approval by us, but they are in there for reference. And then there's operations and maintenance of our system. And then this is really one of my final sort of slides for summaries of the TIP. Again, $367 million in investments of TPA priorities. So what you see included in this program for the next 5 years is the finishing of Atlantic Avenue widening, the construction of State Road 7 widening and extension is fully programmed within this TIP. Those both includes pedestrian bicycle facilities. Then the next larger category, which is many of our other priorities that the TPA strives for and that the locals submit for, are complete streets, pedestrian, and bicycle facilities. And that equates to around $90 million investment for the TPA priorities. With that, it's actually, I did the calculation the other day, 52 miles of new or improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities when it comes to that $90 million. So outside of that, we also have transit vehicles and shelters. So electric vehicles for Palm Tran. We have tri-rail trains as well, and then enhanced shelters for Palm Tran, lighting improvements, and then we have intersection and traffic signal improvements. And then this is my last slide. So a final adoption is going to the governing board this month, on June 20th. So presented last month to committees. It's been open for public review. We incorporated since last time a few more local products for reference, updated a few more product details. Our map's still available online if you'd like to see those. And then forthcoming, unfortunately not available for you right now, but we're working with a new consultant on our database. And so in the future, you're going to see a lot more of this interactive database for you to explore online. And that should be coming in the next month or two. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Do any committee members have comments on this item? Yes, Myron.
A couple of years ago, this committee passed a motion, I believe, asking the staff to consult with FDOT about the extent to which FDOT checks the long-range transportation plan when it puts something in the TIP. My understanding is that both federal and state law require the TIP to be consistent with the long-range transportation plan, both in terms of the specification of the project, which is easy, but also within 120% of the cost feasible estimate in the long-range transportation plan. Andy, can you tell us where we are in that? As I recall, when you asked, FDOT said no.
So
can you tell us where we are?
Sure. So, and what Myron's referring to is, our long range plan has to be consistent with with our transportation improvement program, this project moving forward. And so the estimates, there's some pretty big thresholds in some of these. It's like greater than 50%. There's a few thresholds on there, and there's also length requirements as well. I think that's where the 120%, 20% higher. So the way that FDOT and FHWA check it is really through our certification review process. They're spot checking those. They aren't going in the line every year with so many products. They spot check to make sure that the products in the long range plan are consistent with the tip. Now it is our job as staff to ensure that that we're still meeting those thresholds and they're still consistent documents. What I can say is that process has historically been cumbersome, right? Because when you have a update of all these products, especially ones that have high increases in cost, to be consistent between our long range plan and the tip, and there's all these updates that come with that annual update of the costs, it could be hard for our staff to keep track of all that. This new database that we're moving towards with this consultant will have those checks in there for us. So we'll have the cost estimates within the LRTP section of that, and there's going to be a crosswalk with those products to the tip. And so we'll get triggered on those in our database. So that's what I can offer you long-term, is that right now we're still as staff checking those to make sure we're still in the thresholds. But long-term, we're going to have a little bit more of a streamlined check of it.
So you're moving toward it at least.
From a streamlined perspective, we're still doing it, but not as, quickly as we'd like to do.
I just like
Takes
to
that time.
let's just make one comment. I realize this is it's challenging and there are practicalities involved in all this. But you said, if I remember your phrase correctly, that the long-range transportation plan is consistent with the tip. And it's really the other way around. The tip is supposed to be consistent with the long-range transportation plan. The long-range transportation plan is supposed to be the guiding document. And then it's supposed to have all the projects over the next 25 years. And while the cost feasible estimates are in the 25-year plan, they're very uncertain, of course, but they involve significant trade-offs for things that do or do not get in the 25-year plan.
Yep.
And so it's really the tip has to be consistent with the 25-year plan, not the other way around, right?
Correct. You are correct. Yep. Sorry for that confusion.
And as a practical matter, we all understand that what happens if cost estimates get to be 125% rather than 100%, 120%, then there's an amendment to the long-range transportation plan.
Yep.
So it's a difficult, I recognize that it's a difficult practical problem, but we really ought to keep our focus on which document is the governing document and which document is the implementation of that governing document.
That's good points. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments about this item? Oh, any other comments about this item? Nope. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Albert, second.
Second.
Second by Wynn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
We have a roll call on this, please.
Do we need a roll call, Andrew? If
If you'd like to, it isn't required for the advisory committees. But the board will be required to do a roll call
Okay,
vote.
well-
But up to you all and your discussion on that.
everybody approved it, so let's just move on. Okay, well, then we'll do a roll call.
Ryan Rossi,
Yes.
Lily Charlotte Landstrom, Aquanette Tyson Thomas,
Yes.
Kate Layden,
Yes.
James Garvin,
Yes.
Jim Knight,
Yes.
VJ Mishra,
Yes.
Myra Newman,
No.
Brian Rosen,
Yes.
Greg Fagan,
Yes.
Albert Richwagon,
Yes.
James McCormick,
Yes.
Wen Dang.
Yes.
Thank you.
So is,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to just explain my no vote for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. We're a collegial group.
Yeah, no.
6 or 7 years ago, the way this committee was appointed was changed. So that now we are appointed, each one of us is beholden to a member of the board for our appointment. And the member of the board who appointed me says I should vote no.
Thank you, Myron. Let's continue on with the agenda. I'd like to invite Claudia Olarte for FDOT to present on the item of US 27 connector feasibility study.
Mr. Chair, just if I may. as
Yes.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Myron, because we also, when we put out the final agenda,
Mhm.
usually with the opposition, people like to just know the answers anyway. So when you provide that, it's helpful.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say on this item too, this is an exciting one for the US 27 connector, just because it's one that was in the long range plan. This is one that we had a priority in the RTP to do a study like this. And so this is the first view of what EPDOT has done for this study. So we're just looking to get your feedback on questions that you might still have outstanding from this and any thoughts.
No, I'm definitely interested to hear about this one. And with that being said, Claudia, the floor is yours.
Can you turn on your mic? Claudia Larte, Florida Department of Transportation, and we're here today to present our preliminary findings for the alternative corridor evaluation study for a new connector roadway in the area of Belle Glade and the South Bay City. And here with me, we have our consultant team that is gonna go over the presentation for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Good afternoon. I'm going to present, I'm Kurt Lehman and I'm with Cambridge Systematics. I'm going to present on the progress of this study as we're entering the final stages and working toward recommendations for further study, PD&E studies. So the background of the study, there were actually numerous studies preceding this one that identified the need to have a corridor, alternative corridor that allowed traffic to flow through this area, through this region of Belle Glade, especially when it came to truck traffic. There's a heavy truck traffic on this route going from State Road 80 east and then US 27 to the north and west. So right through that corridor is State Road 80 through the downtown Belle Glade area and through South Bay. So also this roadway was identified, this alternative corridor was identified in the 2045 long range plan, or the TPA, as a cost feasible project. So this is a study, alternative corridor evaluation to study different alternatives. Next slide. And here's some of the history of the previous studies that were done leading up. The main one there, back in 2010, US 441 corridor feasibility study identified these 10 alignment concepts as potential new roadways or alternative corridors to provide this this alternative. And the long range plan identified on the right side of the screen is the long range plan. It was called the US 27 connector. So that's the roadway in red. It's a new roadway identified there. So this study is building off of those. Next slide, please. This is the alternative corridor evaluation process from FDOT. We have done all of these steps and we're at the final one there. We've reviewed those prior studies and did an in-depth and existing conditions review. We've held numerous stakeholder meetings, reached out to industry stakeholders, local stakeholders there, and the TPA, of course. We developed a purpose and need summarizing what is the need and for the study and what are the driving factors. Then we developed a methodology memo to evaluate the corridors, and we performed our evaluation. Now we're on the stage where we're building our recommendations for further study. Next slide. This is a summary of the stakeholder engagement that's gone on in the last few years. Some of the key points that we've learned from talking with the various stakeholders that safety was a primary concern, especially for the local groups there, the cities, as far as pass-through traffic moving through downtown Belglade, where there are a lot of pedestrians, bicycle activity. And then there are, like I said, there's a high percentage of truck traffic there passing through, and it creates some conflict with the local traffic and pedestrians. Also, there was an industrial site that is still planned to be in the future land use maps. Future land use is planned to be switch from agricultural to industrial. In that area, there was a major site, although the plans for that particular site have gone through numerous changes since the initiation of this study. But that was a concern as far as truck traffic and employment opportunities and connectivity from that site to the rest of the region. So that plays into the system linkage need and economic development need. On the next slide, I believe we have our purpose and needs statement. Yes. The two primary needs of the study were safety and system linkage, with economic development as a secondary need. The purpose was summarized as to improve safety and system linkage between US 27 and State Road 80, providing alternatives to travel through the cities of South Bay and Belglade. And I think we can move on to the next one. Okay, so these were the 4 alternative corridors that were identified after a review of some of the previous studies, which had, like I showed, had identified other concepts, alternative alignment concepts. These were 4 that we reduced to and went through land use suitability mapping and avoiding constraint areas. These, in summary, there's 2 alternatives that pass west of State Road 15, new roadway alignments that pass through the current agricultural areas closer to Lake Okeechobee to the west of the city of Belglade. There's one alternative 3 that runs through State Road 15, which is an existing roadway, and the plan there, the summary would be to widen it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes to increase capacity on State Road 715, thereby creating an alternative to the travel through State Road 80. And the 4th alignment alternative is to the east of the city of Belglade, passing east and south of the city to connect to US 27. So each corridor met the purpose and need at a basic level, but then we went through an evaluation methodology to weigh different measures on the 4 corridors to see if any stood out or didn't meet the purpose and need to a greater extent. This is a list of those measures that we used in our evaluation methodology: engineering considerations, environmental considerations, and social considerations, cost, and stakeholder input. These were all in the methodology memorandum that was developed and adopted for use for the evaluation methodology. You can see under engineering considerations, there was the safety impacts, the utility conflicts, right-of-way needs, drainage consideration, and other design considerations. Environmental had a slew of natural and socioeconomic, cultural factors and physical, so floodplains, natural habitats, and noise for the local populations, cultural historical sites, the alternatives impacting how they would impact those various items. And one last note there was cost considerations, included capital costs and operating and maintenance costs, some of which was measured roughly, having rough estimates of cost in a quantitative sense, and some were qualitative, because this was a high planning level review and we didn't have exact cost specifications for everything as detailed. This is a summary of the result of that evaluation This is the matrix, including all those factors. On this table, the numbers that are higher is a 1, 2, 3. So 3 being the highest positive score, 1 being the least positive relative to other alternatives. And so in summary, you can see there was not a huge difference between in some, although there are numerous different aspects to each alternative that make them differ. But in summary, there's not a huge difference between alternatives 1, 2, and 3. 4 was a little questionable, but still pretty close in total. And if I go to the next slide, our summary so far is that alternative 3 is the leading alternative, although alternatives 1 and 2 also scored closely, especially. And the main summary I could give is that the highest cost alternatives are 1, 2, and 4. They represent building a new roadway. Alternative 3 is the lowest cost alternative, as it does not entail building a new roadway. And also the highest benefit alternatives we noticed were 1 and 2, but there were some benefits associated with alternative 3 and 4. So that is the high level summary following our evaluation. And on the next slide, yes, our next steps are going to be to finalize the alternative core evaluation report and incorporate input from the TPA as we're presenting here, from your committee and from the board. And we are going to proceed with PD&E studies pending the project prioritization that comes from the input received. And we can also apply for SIS program, potentially for SIS program funding opportunities, since this project would be a parallel facility, possibly impacting the SIS. State Road 80 is a SIS corridor. So.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Can I ask a favor? Can you scroll back to the one that had the alternatives laid out on the map? Thank you. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Are there comments from the committee? Let's start over this way with VJ.
Thank you. So this is the road I take pretty much every day for my work. The questions I have for you at this point of time is, of the 4 alternative, has there been any preference, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4?
We've noticed just in the scoring that we've done that alternative 3 is leading. However, we don't have a clear, we've been wanting to receive the feedback, the input from the TPA as a major stakeholder to make a definitive, recommendation so far. We could proceed to PD&E study without selecting one of the 4 alternatives. Part of the ACE process is either eliminating one or more of the alternatives.
Well, at this point of time, seeing the 3 alternatives we have, obviously three is the least preferred option as far as, because I use this every day.
Okay.
The problem that we have is that, if I don't know, you already know the area, it's highly developed. Next to the road, there are a close development, especially around the turn on State Road 80 when you turn from State Road 17. The development are too close. I know you guys have been, probably DOT is doing some work over there, but there is so much close development. There has to be a way to completely cut off. There is a lot of crosswalking. There is no pedestrian crossing, anything else. There is a lot of people building their homes so close to the road itself. There is a lot of crosswalking. Plus the Canal Street bridge that you have to widen it. It's already 2 bridges. It's already 2 signals next to each other. You have to do something about that one. So with the amount of thing, you have to restrict people's access on that road. And 715, I think, is a bypass right now. That's how it was designed and built. So 715 is still, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So if you're going to widen that, I don't see us getting any benefit from it. So if it's a preference from personally me using this road every day, I would say 1 and 2 are the preferred. Yes, you may say it's expensive because you're building a new road in Belglade is always expensive, but it is a shorter route.
Thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Vijay. Wen?
There it is. Thank you for your presentation. I have a few comments and question. One is, can you please clarify safety? Because the purpose and need of this from this project and what I perceived is that it's a diversion for truck traffic. So can you please clarify what elements of safety that we're referring to for this particular study?
Yes, in the existing conditions phase, we looked at where there were crashes in downtown, in the whole study area in Belle Glade. And we specifically looked at truck crashes and total crashes. We noticed that there were a lot of truck involved crashes on State Road 80 between like what's shown on the map there, Ice Plant Road or Gator Boulevard and south of Dr. MLK Boulevard. So right there in the heart of Belle Glade on State Road 80, there were a lot of crashes, a lot of truck crashes. And so if we have an alternative corridor for trucks to avoid going straight through State Road 80, then we can predict that we will avoid some crash situations, some safety issues.
Yeah, to further, and you asked further in this detail in this question, and you probably don't have the answer in front of you, is what percentage of truck versus people crashes versus truck versus another vehicle crash that has led to this decision?
I don't have that exact information, but it's possible that that's in our existing conditions data that we can pull that information.
Perfect. The other question I have is based on alternative 1, 2, and 4, and I do agree with Vijay on alternative 3 not being a preference. In my personal opinion, is because it's close to a more urbanized element, and we do know that there is a lot of pedestrian and safety access out there that you're bordering basically a different land use than industrial and commercial. My question in reference to truck diversion, what percentage of trucks are being diverted away from the preferred route or this road? And of that, is there any consideration to convert these existing capacity on that existing road into something else that is more feasible for pedestrian safety and environment for residents in this area?
I do have values on one of the ways we evaluated this was we ran the Southeast Regional Planning model under the 4 alternatives to get volumes so we could get truck volumes and total volumes on all of the roadway corridors, and that helped us to identify the safety potential safety and improvement consideration. So I could I don't have that number offhand. You say that the percent of trucks that deviated from the State Road 80 alignment, is that what you were asking?
Yeah, because I think from a rational standpoint, if you're building a new road, there's going to be some level of traffic diversion. Even though it's intended for trucks, there's still going to be traffic diversion, which means that you have additional capacity on State Road 80 to do bike ped improvement or
I see.
Right, some other road safety elements that's out there. That's all I'm asking.
We have the volume under each of the alternatives on each of the major roadways in the area that we can provide. And I think it's a good point. Just a side note that's not in the presentation is that the current forecasted level of service is acceptable LOSC for all of the roadways in the study area under the default, the adopted model, which actually does include the cost feasible project. So, but in all 4 of our alternatives, there's no level of service D or worse on any of the major roads in the area. So it's, but when we're looking at,
But aren't we designing to a level service D if it's within the acceptable level of service?
Correct.
But we're designing for C.
I'm just saying it's currently C even without
Okay,
changing
understood.
the
There's
alternative,
capacity.
right?
Thank
There's-
you.
There's capacity, exactly, to
All right.
address that point.
Thank you so much.
Myron?
I'd like to agree with VJ. If the primary concern is safety, alternative 3 gets the lowest safety score. So it would seem to me that even though the numbers are sort of equal, you then have to look into that down into detail. And if the concern is safety, I wouldn't support alternative 3.
Thank you, Myron. Jim?
I don't drive the road like VJ does daily, but Naples is kind of, it's more of a comment, but Naples is one of our great getaways we enjoy. Recently, we went up to Fort Myers instead, and the truck traffic over there is unbelievable going through the town. And if you're going to make a sustainable cities, the Belgrade, Lewiston, and so forth, I think you're better off, again, moving it out of going through the heart of the downtown. I don't think the trucker is going to be stopping and going to the shops and so forth. Yeah, they might hit a gas station or something like that. And Finfrock recently went over there and opened up a facility, one of the largest employers over there in quite a long time, so forth. So I think, again, that if we could move it off of that, the 3 and try to narrow down to, seems like we're always trying to catch up. We've got a growing state, a lot of people moving here and so forth, and we're always behind in the roads, and it just seems like an ongoing problem. So if there's a way to shorten that study to, where the truck traffic's going to be moved off of that main corridor where the pedestrians are already walking from a safety standpoint, but also for long-term viability of the downtowns there and so forth, I think it would be a great idea to move it to a different route than that one. Thank you.
Albert?
I agree with VJ as well, but I'd also like to point out that you list option 1 is to the east of Belglade. It's actually to the farthest to the west of Belglade.
Yes. Yeah, the alternative 4 is east of Belglade.
Yeah, you list
apologize-
option 1 is
apologize
east
for
of
the slide,
Belglade.
yeah.
It's the farthest west of
Yeah.
Belglade.
The alternative 1 is right next to Lake Okeechobee. That's right. Yeah.
It's just misleading.
Thank you, Albert. Any other comments? Jim, VJ? You're good? Okay. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like to echo, what Jim, and again, VJ, I appreciate the fact that you are on the street daily and, your input here. It's helps kind of add some color. But again, I'm kind of leaning more towards, looking into the future, not trying to play catch up. I understand, costs are costs. But again, if we can get some of that heavy traffic out of these downtowns, and again, as Young said, make more pedestrian and bike friendly opportunities and safety opportunities. I think that's, got to weigh in a bit as we look at this whole situation.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Real quick question. Have you
One last comment regarding the safety, since we're talking about this. Think of Belgrade as downtown. People obviously crossing, we don't have the same level of safety awareness in Belgrade. When people are crossing over there, I've noticed that a lot. I was in an accident just a week ago, big one with a semi-trailer. And the problem is that it's not just people over there. There are a lot of animals also there on the roads. Dogs, chicken, a lot of chicken over there in Belgrade. You will find a lot of those kind of animals also being there. So I don't know if that was taken into consideration, but please keep that also in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. So real quickly, I have a question, and work has taken me out to the Western communities more recently. So, but I can echo the amount of truck traffic going through downtown Belgrade is just not safe. It's just not. It's beyond what should be going through a downtown area like that. That being said, I do echo the comments that option 1, alternative 1, and alignment 1 and alignment 2 seem to be reasonable options as far as diverting, and yet preserving the ability for the downtown to prosper in the future. That being said, if you look at alternatives 1 and alternative 2, Have you factored in right-of-way acquisition at all into these calculations? And if so, what does that look like for those alternatives? Because that farmland is productive right now.
Yeah, we did look at right of way and in terms of number of parcels affected and estimate of acreage. One of the things about, yeah, a lot of those parcels are owned not just by, you know, families, but by large corporations and things like that. So this study didn't go into super depth about, you know, there are processes about how to handle right of way, of course, but we took that into account in the cost considerations and in the engineering considerations, the number of parcels, whether the parcel was along the edge, whether the acquisition would be along the edge of a parcel or through the middle of a parcel. So those kind of considerations were taken into account in the evaluation stage.
And has there been any outreach to any of those landowners as far as getting their feedback as a stakeholder in the
Yeah.
solution?
Yeah, some of those landowners were involved in the stakeholder meetings that we had, mainly due to the industrial site that was mentioned, where alternative 1 and alternative 2 pass through south of Canal Street. There was an industrial site that's still, the original plans for the site are not what they used to be, but we were in touch with some of those landowners, including Florida Crystals, who owns a big parcel there based on their plan to redevelop. So yes, we have talked with them, and it's been a long process, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of different voices when it comes to that. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was my primary concern was the right-of-way acquisitions, but any other questions from or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very
all
much.
for your input. Yes.
All right, next we have a presentation on bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements for State Road A1A. I invite Chris McCurdy from FDOT to present on this item. Chris, the floor is yours.
Oh, I'm Chris McCurdy. Thank you for having me. I'm a project manager in the design office at FDOT. And today I'm going to talk to you about our efforts, our current efforts in Palm Beach County on A1A for bicycle and pedestrian safety. So first I'll go over the agenda. There are 3 main items. I know there's a lot of information on this slide. So first I'm going to talk about immediate safety improvements, and that is going to be things that we can implement within the next 6 months. The second item is going to be, we're currently doing a feasibility study on bicycle and pedestrian safety on A1A in Palm Beach County. And I'm going to provide details on what that study is going to cover and the timeline for when we're going to have information available. And the third item, we currently have 7 resurfacing projects on A1A in Palm Beach County in the 5-year work program. So I'm going to provide details on what bicycle and pedestrian improvements those projects are going to include. So first, the immediate safety improvements. So these projects are going to be implemented by our traffic operations office. And this is going to be your small term immediate improvement that we can get out the door quickly. So it's not going to be the huge dollar cost, and it's not going to be overly complicated in design. This is going to be the, oh, what can we get out there and do now? I want you to look at the picture in the upper right-hand corner. That is a Sharrow pavement marking on a travel lane. And what Sharrow markings are is they are trying to convey a message that people who are driving vehicles and bicyclists that both have the ability to command the travel lane. So bicycles have the right to command that full lane. We can use those Sharrow pavement markings as long as the speed limit is posted at 35 miles per hour or less. And those Sharrow pavement markings are put in increments of 250 feet max. So that's what that symbol on the pavement is trying to convey. And then below that, you'll see the Share the Road signage. That signage is a reminder for both the bicyclists and the vehicular drivers that they are supposed to be sharing the road. So those again are the short-term improvements. We've identified several locations where we can implement those now. And all the municipalities are listed in the table on the left. So the cities include Delray, Gulfstream, Boynton Beach, Briny Breezes, Ocean Ridge, Manalapan, and Palm Beach. So if you look at the far right column, it says improvements. There are 2 locations that are installing Sharrow markings, and that is Gulf Stream and Manalapan. Everywhere else is doing the yellow signs that say share the road. So again, we have two different things that we can do now at these locations. One is pavement markings and one is signage. And I've got a map that kind of shows where we're implementing these improvements currently. So the boxes, you see the red boxes kind of indicating the limits of where we're doing it. The yellow arrow is pointing to what treatment we're doing, and it's either going to be those signs or those pavement markings. So you can see quite a bit of Palm Beach County is being covered, and the status of this is the contract, the work order is being drafted currently. Once the contractor gets the work order, they have 60 to 90 days to actually complete the work effort. So that's what we're doing immediately. That's not the only thing we're doing, but that's what we're doing immediately. My next slide is going to get into the safety study. And so again, we're doing a safety improvements feasibility study, and the task work order for this effort was executed the end of March. And this is anticipated to be a 9-month study with several components. The first one is going to be reviewing existing information. So that's going to be reviewing the LRTP. That's going to be reviewing the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. That's going to be reviewing the TPA's Vision Zero, reviewing all information that's available. The second item is data collection and assessment. So that starts with a desktop safety review, and it moves on to field reviews, both from the windshield and getting out of the vehicle and identifying features in the field, taking pictures, collecting data. Also evaluating crash history using Signal 4 analytics. The third step is going to be determining bicycle and pedestrian needs and goals, and that's going to focus on specific areas where there might be special needs, but also the corridor as a whole. The fourth item is identifying and evaluating the performance of potential short-term improvements. That's like what we talked about, the pavement markings, the signage, or midterm or long-term improvements. Your midterm and long-term improvements are going to be things that we're going to have to kind of incorporate out in the future a little bit, because they're going to be a bigger lift. They're going to be more money. They're going to take more design effort. So they're not going to be able to be implemented as quickly as something like pavement markings and signage. Next, there's planning level concepts and cost estimates. So once we get all the data and we can see where there are opportunities to make improvements, concepts are drafted and estimates for cost for implementing these are put together. And then we figure out how we can fund these improvements. Following that, recommendation, summary, and a final report. And I've got a timeline on the next slide. So at this time, we are concluding the data analysis, like reviewing what existing reports there are, what existing information there is. And now we're going into actually analyzing the data and looking for places where we can make the improvements. So this again kicked off in the end of March, and it's anticipated to have a final delivery of a document, a report in October. But there'll be milestones along the way. So as we get information, if there are things we can do immediately, we're going to look at doing things immediately. And as we get the information, if there's things that we can start programming projects in the future, we will do that. So information will be rolling in segments, but the final report is due to us in October. So what are some of the potential countermeasures this report is hoping to deliver for us? So providing curb extensions is one example, and curb extensions would be an opportunity to shorten the pedestrian crosswalk. So shortening the crossing distance, pedestrians have to be in the travel lane. Upgrade pedestrian lighting at crosswalks to make the pedestrians more visible to the motorists. Widen shoulders where feasible and mark shoulders for bicycles. For us to mark the shoulders for bicycle, our design standard requires a 5-foot shoulder width. So we can't put the bicycle designation on the pavement unless we have at least 5-foot paved shoulder width. Install the Sharrow pavement markings. Again, those were those markings I showed earlier where we're telling the bicyclist and the motorist that the bicyclist has a right to command the full lane. Replace worn and faded detectable warning surfaces at crosswalk locations. That's these are those yellow domed surfaces that you see at the bottom of a pedestrian ramp. And those should be, highly visible and in good condition. So that's another item we could do. Installing high emphasis crosswalks at signalized intersections. What we mean by high emphasis is it has the longitudinal striping, but it also has the transverse striping. So it's more of the white striping to draw attention to the crosswalk. And that's what we do as a standard at signalized intersections today. Also restriping existing crosswalks to improve visibility so the motorist can see the crosswalk well in advance. Okay, so now we're moving on. We have 7 resurfacing projects in our 5-year work program. And this map, I know there's a lot going on in the map. I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. So the legend on the right has the project number starting with the lowest number at the top, going to the highest number at the bottom. Next to that project number, there's a color, and you can find that color on the map. And so you can kind of see the location of where each project is. As I go through each of the 7 projects, I will call out what municipality it is in, and I'm going to go through the list of projects from starting at the south and moving north. So I'm going to start with a project in Boca first. Okay, so this one is State Road A1A from southeast 31st Street to south of Grand Court. And again, these are all going to be resurfacing projects where we're able to incorporate some bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Our project manager is Henry Okina. And this project, we're going to resurface the existing roadway and shared use path. We are reducing the travel lane width to 11 feet to accommodate a 6-foot buffered bike lane. So we're going to take a foot of pavement from the travel lane and we're going to make the buffered bike lane wider. We're going to install shallow pavement markings on the bridge. So the bridge at this location is a pinch point and there's not enough pavement width to put separated bike or put any kind of bike lanes. So we're putting those shallow pavement markings on so the vehicles know that the bicycles have the ability to command the road. We're also going to fill in sidewalk gaps and add signage at mid-block crosswalks. Okay, moving up a little bit, now we're in Highland Beach. And this is on A1A from south of Grand Court to south of Linton Boulevard. The project manager for this project is Brad Salisbury. This project was recently let and construction was due to start this past Monday. So this project is officially in construction. And here's kind of a map. You've got the begin project at the top and the top graphic and end project at the bottom at just south of Linton. And what this project is doing, this project is widening to provide the 5-foot marked bike lane. It is going to improve drainage and reduce ponding both on the existing bike and travel lanes. It's going to upgrade asphalt paths to meet ADA standards. So there has to be certain slopes and certain criteria to meet ADA standards. Update mid-block pedestrian crossing signing to the latest standards. So our criteria changes over the years and it's going to update the signage to current standards and add no passing zone marking signage in areas of concern. So again, this project is in Highland Beach. Next, we're going to move on to Delray Beach. And this is from Linton Boulevard to East Atlantic Avenue. And the project manager for this project is Hyan Wu. And this, there are already bike lanes within the project limits, and those are existing to remain. Pedestrian lighting is going to be upgraded at a few different locations, signalized intersections. So Linton, Casuarina, and East Atlantic Avenue. Existing mid-block crossings are to remain. We're upgrading pedestrian signal features for ADA compliance, and we're upgrading 4 mid-block crossings to rectangular rapid flashing beacons. The rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RFBs, have a sign, yellow diamond shaped sign, but below it, it has small lights that the pedestrian can activate it. And so the motorist is going to be able to have additional recognition that there's a crosswalk there because of these flashing lights at the RFBs. Okay, now we're moving up a little bit more. This is in Palm Beach and Lake Worth Beach, and this is from south of Lake Avenue to north of Ibis Way. The project manager for this project is Van Den and Nagel. And here's a map of what the limits are for begin project and end project. North is on the right. Okay, and this project includes increasing sidewalk width from 5 feet to 6 feet. Increasing the paved shoulder width from 3 feet to 5 feet, because again, once we can get that 5 feet, then we can mark the shoulders for bicyclists. Installing 2 mid-block pedestrian crossings at Raymond Floyd Golf Course and Phillips Ocean Park. Okay, this is another project by Bandana, and the limits are from north of Ibis Way to north of Emerald Beach Way, and this is all within the town of Palm Beach. Okay, and improvements include providing the 5-foot bicycle lanes where feasible and shallow pavement markings where bicycle lanes are not feasible. They would not be feasible due to the shoulder width and not an opportunity to, in our right of way, to widen. Also actuated flashing beacons with additional signage before Sloan's Curve and Widener's Curve, and speed reduction signs ahead before Sloan's Curve and Widener's Curve. So we've got one more project, and this is oh no, we got two more. This is still in Palm Beach. This is Tuck Lee's project. This is from south of State Road 704 Royal Palm Way. From Emerald Beach Way to south of Royal Palm Way, sorry. Okay, this project is going to be installing shallow pavement markings. There's some existing broken sidewalks that's going to be replaced and updating the lighting at intersections to current criteria. Okay. And our last project is in North Palm Beach, and the project manager is Jeff Robert. The limits of this project are from John D. MacArthur Park entrance to Portage Landing North. And what's included in this project is repaving the existing pavement, minor widening. Now, the widening will not take place within the limits of the park, so all widening will be outside the park limits, and restriping to provide 8-foot designated bike lanes. Upgrading lighting at signalized intersections and upgrading pedestrian signalization at intersections. So that's what this project is doing. And my last slide is going to be kind of a summary of where we're trying to move forward so that we have consistency on A1A in Palm Beach County. And we are going to be working towards providing 11 to 12-foot travel lanes, improving bicycle accommodations, providing a properly signed 5 to 7-foot marked bicycle lane, and having sidewalks on both sides of the road, 6 to 12 foot on the west side, because we just have a little more room to work there, and 6 foot on the east side. So that is my presentation, and I'm anticipating some questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
And just for point of clarity, there were no public comments on the last item either, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any committee members with comments? All right, let's start over there. Myron?
Very well done.
Thank you.
All right. Jim?
I want to say again, very well done as a comment from Myron, but I was just curious. So on A1A in Boca from like Spanish River going south, I noticed that they have those orange flags and there's like a little plastic holder. And so you have the blinking light and everything else, but then there's an orange flag for the people to carry from one side. They drop it on the other side and then go back. It seems like it's another great way to catch the people's attention because we all drive and get used to the flashing lights because it's always flashing. But, and again, I don't even know if it's working or if that's a trial program, or whatever, but I'm just curious.
Okay, I don't have information about that, but yes, I've seen that done other places, so I didn't even realize it was being done in Boca, so I can reach out to the project manager, and you said it is on A1A that they're doing it?
Yeah.
On A1A, yeah.
At
basically,
what cross?
it
street?
starts at Spanish River Boulevard, I want to say, and goes all the way down to Palmetto Park Road, maybe even further, maybe down to the Inlet Bridge. Is it in Deerfield too? So,
It's kind of like, if you pay attention to social media lately.
Well, I've
it's-
seen it
it's the
before, I
brick.
just haven't seen it in Boca.
Well, the fake brick, because people aren't slowing down and it's a public outcry. So it's these, of course, it's not MUTCD approved, none of these, but it's basically to get people to slow down and
Yeah,
don't hit me as
The
you walk.
visibility, yeah.
Right, but the brick, we should do the brick.
what's the brick? I'm sorry.
Instead of flags, they're holding up like a foam brick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Win?
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sorry, did I cut you? I have a few comments. Thank you so much. I think quick build and getting a lot of the signage and the shared lane markings out there is very important. And I was hoping that a lot of that curb extension that you're analyzing could be implemented in a quick build scenario, whether if it's delineators or anything like that, that will really, you know, to highlight what we kind of briefly talked about this morning about tactical urbanism to, you know, to test and pilot those ideas before, you know, you make that permanent 5 years later. So that's my first comment. If there are more than just pavement markings and signage, can we implement some of these strategy using delineators, whether if you use the tactics of putting a few delineators posts at the center line, what we call a center line hardening, to reduce the left turning movements of vehicles. So that helps the pedestrian get across the street easily. Something like that would, you know, where I think it would be helpful and easy to implement as we're moving into more of a long-term project. The other comment that sorry, I just had a funny text message that just came in. The other comment that I have is, you know, especially for some of these design, and I have participated in some of these public meetings, especially for the one in Boca, since I'm representing the city of Boca. And in the last meeting that one of your project manager came to present to the bike committee, residents in that committee overwhelming has been asking for not only buffered, but buffered and protected. And I know that it was not considered, even though I know it's effective and we know how we have a lot of road users out there. I think there's an overwhelming amount of residents, and as of course residents with young children like myself that would like to use these facilities. And because the trails along A1I are so popular with pedestrian, it's actually better to separate them. Either that or widen the trail itself. I know some of our right of way is 100 feet, and we know that the landscaping that's out there is a challenge for us to do any kind of widening, even though you own the right of way. But I would support providing more protected and buffered bike facilities, protected over buffered. That'll be the preference. And then lastly, in the design, especially the ones that's about to be implemented and is under design, I think as the last MUTCD update that has been approved, and it's not been incorporated, of course, with FDOT, but you know, the 2023 MUTCD has provisions and of course, like guidance and really standards for bike boxes, protected intersections. So I would ask that these gets implemented in the design because it is now standards.
So we're in the process of incorporating the updates to the MUTCD, but that is not the guidance we're following yet. So it's a process for the department to move, right? Because our standards are supposed to be MUTCD and above, but we're in the process of incorporating. So I can't comment on when we're going to have that ready. And the safety study we're doing now, the improvements you were suggesting, I'm anticipating those type of things to roll out from that. And when we can implement them, it'll have to be evaluated.
Right. And thank you. It's, you know, it's forthcoming. So by the time it's ready to be bid and led.
So your project in Boca is complete plans in district, and it's due to be let in 2027 now.
Right.
And I know that we have an internal meeting to discuss that project specifically on June 18th with one of the directors. So I will bring your concerns up at that meeting.
Right. And again, this is just not my concern. It's also representing the bike, you know, the biking community that's represented at that meeting. They're overwhelming asking for protected facilities. And then lastly, it's I think you know, with 12-foot travel lane is wider than I-95. So you know, personally, I would support something.
So 12-foot travel lanes on I-95 would be standard. And until recently, the FDM required on a 2-lane, 2-way facility that we have the 12-foot travel lanes. That's a recent change to the FDM. So projects that were in different stages of design when that change was made, that's a very recent change that we can now have less than 12-foot lanes on 2-lane, 2-way.
Yeah, thank you.
Albert?
on a serious problem where people have recently been killed in Gulfstream. There's 75 to 100 feet of right of way. And when you ride when you ride north of George Bush on A1A, not only is there zero shoulder, but there's a 6 to 8 inch drop off to sand. You can't even get out of the way of a car if you wanted to. I was on a committee 25 years ago to get the original bike lanes through Delray on A1A. And it always seems to end right there at George Bush. Does Gulfstream have so much power that nobody can take back our right of way from the encroachment of all of their mailboxes and beautiful landscaping that is causing people to get killed?
Okay, I actually don't have an answer for that. So the projects I presented on have been established in the 5-year work program for a number of years. So we are talking about something that needs to be done more immediately, and I don't have information about that specific location for what we're doing. I will have to follow up and I will provide you with information, but I cannot provide you any details today because I just don't have the information.
Got it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if we may, Brian Ruscher could comment real quick on that.
Brian?
Ryan Ruscher, Deputy Director of Multimodal. So there is actually a statute, Florida statute, not anything locally based, nothing based in FDOT, which protects, and this is more of a quotation, not necessarily a value judgment on the merits of the legislation. It protects the trees that are on either side of the right of way. And because of that state designation of those trees being historic, that has been the reasoning why there has not been a bike lane constructed in that section. The DOT received comments from a number of stakeholders, committees in the area that this is an interim look. I think that long-term, they're going to look at this in the safety evaluation that they're going to do to see what can be done. As Chris alluded to, some of the design standards have been changing over time. They're not what they were 20 years ago when, a lot of the things that were out there were built. But in terms of the kind of authority on the corridor, there are some kind of rules that we all also have to consider when we're out there doing design. So Sharrow's not perfect. Something could be done probably better, but we have to kind of operate within the statutes that we're now governed by. Those were passed 20 years ago. So that's one of the reasons why there are not bike lanes in that section on the shoulder.
That's how they got around getting the bike lanes there. But there is 100 feet of right of way and the trees are less than 3 feet from the road. So you could put the bike lane on the other side of the trees.
So DOT will look at it and in their studies, it's an evaluation that they'll have to undertake. It's their right of way. And, for what it's worth, I'm not an arborist or a landscape architect. I can't make a determination on what like the root structure is, what the necessity of that is. But if we have someone telling us that's going to sign and seal and base their career off of that decision, that's kind of what the parameters are that we all have to go by. So
I'd also like to point out that there are Australian pines, which are banned in the
Yes.
state as noxious weeds and were supposed to be removed by 2025. But
Duly
yet they're-
noted, just trying to
yet
give you
they're
some-
historical.
duly noted, just giving you some context. Yeah.
Trees over life. It's just,
Get 'em,
it's
Albert.
sad. It's really sad.
As a cyclist, and as a Vision Zero approach, I think that it requires some looking at for the future. The comment is welcomed. So thank you.
All right. VJ?
So Albert already mentioned the section. There is another section on the north of it. So these sections that are not being in current 5-year plan, is this something that's going to be done?
So our
What's the plan?
resurfacing program, what we do is we use a survey vehicle. It's called a multi-purpose survey vehicle, and that drives the state road system in its entirety every year. And it provides data back to the department, and that includes crack, rut, and ride. When we're talking about a resurfacing project, projects are programmed based on the quality of the asphalt, the quality of the road at that time. So the ones that have the greatest need are programmed first. So that's how we program our resurfacing projects. When you're programming your resurfacing projects, the primary goal is pavement rehabilitation. When we go out there and we have limits of a project, we try to do everything we can to bring everything up to current criteria. But the resurfacing projects are programmed primarily for resurfacing, and then we do other things while we're out there. So segments that are programmed for resurfacing is based on need and how fast the pavement is going to break down. Because if the pavement is still in good condition, but starting to deteriorate, it's much more cost effective to remediate it than to wait or to do it. There's an optimal time to resurface, and that's how they're programmed.
And in the plan which you have for immediate, whereby you are putting these signs or road marking, I noticed on the north section, there is a gap in there. The immediate one, there's a gap. So you have 5 sections, the first section and second section, there is a gap. Why there is a gap over there? On
I
slide
don't
number
know.
3.
That's the traffic operations office. I can get that information. She was at this morning's meeting. So I will have to provide that information. I don't know how they decided those push button projects.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Brian?
Thank you. Again, this is great work. So thank you. I think again, pedestrian and bike safety is just so important, for our county and looking into the future. One thing, and it's related to it, Sharo, again, I'm learning some new terminologies here. I thought it was a great name. I actually liked it because it's a shared road and it's narrow. I've heard shared roads and bike paths, but never Sharo signs. Is there some PR or something else that maybe the TPA can work with while we're rolling this out? Because a lot of the drivers just don't understand, what that sign means. They see, okay, so bikes can be on the road, but the fact that the bikes can take up the entire lane, I don't think a lot of drivers understand that. And I don't know, again, I happen to sit on the DDA board in Delray Beach. I'm the chair there. We have a good way to get out a lot of messaging, and maybe the TPA can work with some of these other cities that we're putting these improvements in to help people understand, the rules behind these Sharos, because I love it. I think the signs are great. I think we're moving in the right direction. And, being on the pedestrian bike steering committee for Delray, I looked in with Brian when he was with us, shared us like, how comfortable are you as a biker? Comfortable bikers can bike next to a road by cars, but that's like a level 5, most people are level 3, 2. And again, the level 1 to 3, they like the buffers, the full protection, but we need more space. We don't always have it. But, from personally, we have a road on Swinton, which is a Sharo in Delray Beach. And then we have Second Avenue where they did a really nice bike lane. And it's 2 different worlds riding those, 8 blocks, going north and south. So I'm okay with the Sharos. I think we're moving in the right direction, but I think more than just the improvements, which are so important in the planning and making that happen, is some of the education around, what these improvements are and what the rules are surrounding them. So
Thank you,
that's my
Brian.
comment.
Thank you, Brian. Kate?
I actually have a similar comment, same thing, what the public outreach is like on that. I appreciate how quickly you're able to roll it out, and I think that's very exciting. I have personal experience on a bicycle getting hit by a car on a shared use road, 30 miles per hour. And the person who hit me, his first comment was to the officer, they shouldn't be in the road. So I do think there is kind of a discrepancy between the public understanding and the intention of these signs. Or even if there could be more aggressive language, I think of campaigns like click it or ticket or drive sober, get pulled over, just being a bit more aggressive in protecting cyclists.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I echo all the safety comments and so forth by this committee. I do want to draw attention to one small little area that might seem trivial in comparison to some of the broader concerns here. But on the section of A1A between Lake and Ibis, A1A goes right between 2 halves of the Palm Beach golf course, Palm Beach Par 3. Do not underestimate the traffic that those golf carts cause crossing that path, crossing A1A on a regular basis. At peak times, you have a couple of golf carts crossing that street every 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
So while, and they use the crosswalks, they drive over the curbs, there's extensive wear in that crossing. So it's something to pay attention to as you're designing and implementing some of these, is that and let's not talk about what people drink on the golf course too. So just saying, that's an area when I've ever played out there, I've always been concerned, like, why has somebody not gotten hit yet?
Could you say the name of the golf course again?
Palm Beach Par 3. It's right there on Lake and Ibis, and the A1A goes right through the middle of that golf course. There's golf balls going in that traffic. There is carts crossing every couple minutes at peak times. To my knowledge, nothing questionable's happened out there, but I'm sure there's a couple people here that played it that probably would say that that's an area that needs a little bit of a different take probably to make sure that traffic and safety is accounted for.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nope. All right, moving on. Thank you very much, Chris. Next we have the Vision Zero Action Plan status update. I invite Valentina to present on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valentina Facus. I'm the pedestrian bicycle coordinator here for the Palm Beach TPA. And I will make this presentation brief because I know that we are sort of short on time. But for today's presentation, I will be providing a brief overview of our status update for our Vision Zero Action Plan and the actions that we've completed so far and the actions that are in progress for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. And really quickly, this status report is already on the backup agenda with you today and is also up on the website at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. So if you're not familiar already, the TPA does have a Vision Zero action plan that was adopted back in 2019 and updated in 2021. And really the purpose of this plan is to try and eliminate all of the traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. And within this plan, we have outlined 3 key actions. The first one is policy-related actions, funding-related actions, and the last one is cultural-related actions. And if you have not read this plan, you can scan the QR code that's displayed on the screen, or you can visit our website at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. So on the screen there, I'm showing all the actions that we have completed to date. So the very first one is to produce a Vision Zero progress report. So that is the purpose of this presentation today that I'm providing to you today. And typically we provide these progress reports every June of every year, just to show to everyone the progress of those actions and which ones we have completed thus far. The next one is action 1.2, which is safety changes in TPA legislation and policy positions. The TPA is an active member in the Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council, also known as the MPOAC. And if you're not familiar with the MPOAC, that's essentially a nonprofit organization where all the MPOs in the state of Florida get together to share best practices, and they also discuss those legislation and policy positions. So we do attend these meetings on a quarterly basis and provide our input in that way. The next action is action 2.1, which is to work with the signal maintaining agencies for safety improvements. So signal maintaining agencies, Palm Beach County, City of Boca Raton. So we have already worked with them during that fiscal year of 23 to 24 to make those safety improvements. One example that I will provide is we did receive a public comment to provide a leading pedestrian interval at Southern Boulevard and Parker Avenue. And Palm Beach County has already installed that leading pedestrian interval. So if you are ever in the city of West Palm Beach and happen to be walking there, you can see it for yourself if you've never seen how a leading pedestrian interval functions. Next one is action 3.1, which is to provide reviews of fatal pedestrian and bicycle crash reports. If you're not familiar, we provide this on a quarterly basis every single quarter. We started this back in 2022, and originally when we first started it, we were only providing those crash reports for pedestrians and bicyclists for fatalities only. But then towards like the middle to late 2022, we sort of decided to better align with our Vision Zero action plan, which is to eliminate both fatalities and serious injuries. So to better align with our Vision Zero action plan, we decided to include both fatalities and serious injuries for our pedestrian bicycle crash reports. So since 2022, we have been doing that and have been providing those reports every single quarter. And an update on that I would like to provide to you all is those static reports that we provide as an administrative item for committees. We will now be moving forward with a crash dashboard, which is public facing, and everyone will have access to that crash dashboard, which will be including all of the information essentially that we are already including in that pedestrian bicycle quarterly crash report, but in a more visual format and more accessible format. So we're looking forward for that. Next action is 3.4, which is to host an annual Vision Zero workshop. We just hosted our annual Vision Zero workshop on April 4th. Which was the Safe Streets and Roads for All workshop. And really the purpose of that workshop was to try and get all of the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant awardees and potential applicants to try and coordinate on their efforts, on their Safe Streets and Roads for All grant efforts, and share lessons learned and how we can move forward as a county for any safety improvements. Next one is action 3.5, which is to host and or participate in Vision Zero safety events. So the TPA does engage and participate in a number of Vision Zero related safety events throughout the year. One example is for Florida Bicycle Month. Earlier this year, the TPA collaborated with the Lake Worth Beach CRA, Safe Kids Palm Beach County, and FDOT to provide a bicycle safety event in honor of Florida Bicycle Month. And at this event, we provided free helmet fittings and some bicycle and pedestrian safety materials to that underserved community in the city of Lake Worth Beach. So the next one on the screen there, I'm showing all of the actions that are currently in progress. So the very first one, which is really exciting, it's action 1.3, target speed for high crash corridors. So the TPA has, it's currently working on a speed management study, which we will be looking at all of our high injury network roads and identifying the appropriate target speeds and coming up with strategies and countermeasures for those high injury network roads. The next one is action 1.4, which is to display safety analysis for TIP projects. That is something that we are looking into, and we are potentially looking into getting a consultant to help us with this effort in this coming fiscal year. Next action is 1.5, which is to work with the school district to update transportation curriculums. We are in constant communication with the school district. However, we also participate every August in the back to school events, which is where all of the physical education teachers have a chance to get some training, and then the TPA does some tabling there to encourage all of the physical education teachers to incorporate the pedestrian bicycle curriculums into their physical education. Next action is 2.2, which is to evaluate TPA funded projects. And really the purpose of this is to try and look at all of the projects that the TPA has funded and seeing the results of that. So for instance, from an economic perspective, from a health perspective, and if those projects have resulted in any crash reductions. So we are working on that. Next one is action 3.2, which is to include typical section attributes in the federal aid eligible roads. For this one, we are also working on that one. We're also looking into getting a consultant to help us with this item in this coming fiscal year. And last action there, it's action 3.3, which is to implement the Vision Zero media and public education campaign. The TPA in 2022, we created and have already published our Vision Zero social media toolkit that is up on our website. You can visit at palmbeachtpa.org/Vision Zero. And this Vision Zero social media toolkit, really the purpose of this is to provide speaking points to anyone. It's really a resource. So if in the chance that you get asked about Vision Zero, you have some speaking points, and you also have some materials that you can use for social media relating to Vision Zero. We also have a pledge card that you see on the screen there. And this is an initiative that we're doing as part of our Vision Zero efforts. And really the purpose of this is to try and shift that culture for when it comes to crashes, right? So a lot of people tend to use the word accident when we are describing a crash or a collision. And really when we are using the word of accident, when we are describing a collision, it sort of implies that that collision could have not been prevented, which is not really the case. And that's what Vision Zero is all about, which is, using different strategies such as roadway strategies or engineering strategies to try and reduce posted speed limits or reduce the speeds and reduce all of the crashes and completely eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. And we are also working on the public education campaign in the future fiscal years. So next steps, really exciting. We are actually, we will be updating our Vision Zero action plan this new fiscal year 25. As I mentioned, we will be changing our progress for looking at our pedestrian bicycle crash reports by integrating or moving towards a crash dashboard. So we'll keep you all posted on that. And also for Vision Zero Advisory Committee, which is tomorrow, just in case you are interested, we will be hosting our very first Safe Streets and Roads for All grant coordination on a quarterly basis. So you're more than welcome to listen in on that meeting. Again, if you'd like to listen in, you can go to our website at palmbeachtpa.org/VSAC. And really the purpose of this is to try and get all of the municipalities together to coordinate on this Safe Streets and Roads for All effort. So with that, I can take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. Are there any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, do any committee members have questions?
I'll just
Yeah.
say it's not really a question, just a comment. Thanks again for all the work. It was really, again, eye-opening when you came and did the walk in Delray Beach. I was able to participate in that. And again, I live there. It's a couple blocks from my house. I'm on the streets all the time. Yeah, I knew there'd be some issues, but again, it was really eye-opening when you kind of walk and do the audit, and I owe you some information, so I'll get that to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I echo the comments, Valentina. Fantastic work, great presentation. I look forward to some of the ongoing stuff. And that crash map sounds could be very enlightening. So thank you for that.
No, thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right, thank you. So items 4A through 4D are informational only. There will be no staff presentations unless requested by a committee member. If none, staff, are there any public comments on these items?
No, Mr. Chair. I would mention that we do have our LRTP boards in the back of the room. So Nathan George is here to answer any questions on those, and expect an email from us pretty soon about those upcoming meetings in your communities.
No, great. I hope everybody can take time to weigh in on LRTP stuff, not only here, but also in your community. So please be engaged with that. Our next CAC meeting is scheduled for July 10th, 2024. At this time, our committee meeting is adjourned.